Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be ranking all of the Mission Impossible movies. So the trailer to Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning dropped yesterday. It's going to be released sometime next year. And after watching that trailer, I was like, you know what? This is a good time to talk about my love for the Mission Impossible movies and give myself a challenge, which is ranking the movies from worst to best. Which is not an easy task because, with the exception of maybe one film that I think is legitimately bad, I think the vast majority, 90% of this franchise, is very, very good. And it's only gotten better as it's been getting older, which is kind of rare for a lot of franchises. We don't really see that so often, and that's one of the things that kind of stands out about Mission Impossible, and I'll kind of talk about that as I rank the movies, is that when this franchise first started, you get the sense that based on the first three movies, it had difficulty finding its identity, because the first three Mission Impossible movies, outside of the fact that Tom Cruise is in it and he plays a spy, those movies feel worlds apart from each other. They barely feel connected whatsoever in terms of the visual language, in terms of the tone of those films, in terms of the way the action is directed. I mean, the first three movies are like, I can't believe it's even part of the same series. It's so kind of strange. They feel very disconnected. And then once you get to Ghost Protocol, that's when you get the sense that, okay, now the series is starting to find its stride. It's starting to find its identity, its voice. It's starting to find kind of what separates these spy movies from other spy movies. And ever since Ghost Protocol, the series has been really going strong. You very rarely do you ever see a franchise that's nearly 30 years old at this point get a second wind quite like the Mission Impossible series. And a lot of that has to go to Tom Cruise, obviously, and the dedication he has to the character of Ethan Hunt, and the fact that he consistently puts himself in life-risking scenes to give us entertainment, which I very much appreciate, and it is one of the reasons why a lot of the later era Mission Impossible movies are so incredible to watch, because a lot of the stunts and action are done practically. And overall, they're just incredibly fun, exceptionally well-made, top-tier level popcorn entertainment movies. I love them very much. That's why ranking this list wasn't the easiest thing in the world for me to do, but I was able to get through it. And with all that being said, let's start with what I think is objectively the worst Mission Impossible movie. So starting at the bottom of the list is Mission Impossible 2. You guessed it. Most people agree this is not a very good movie. And I say this as a huge John Woo fanboy. In fact, I did a video a few months back ranking my favorite John Woo action scenes. For anyone interested, I'll put that in the description below. I absolutely love John Woo. His direction for Mission Impossible 2, it's a big old swing and a miss. It's a huge mismatch. His style of directing does not work for this series at all, and you feel that from the very beginning of this film. On top of that, the story is very bland. Something about like Ethan having to stop a killer virus. The villain in this movie is probably the worst of the entire series. He's very annoying and not that intimidating at all. The forced romance between Ethan and the thief girl, I'm spacing on her character's name, they lack chemistry, and it's the only Mission Impossible movie that kind of feels like it's trying to emulate James Bond. You know, you got to have a romantic interest, and you know, there's even a flirty car chase in Mission Impossible 2 that looks very similar to that of GoldenEye. The action is really bad, very cheesy. It is without question the most dated Mission Impossible movie. The movie came out in the early 2000s. I think it came out in the year 2000. And it feels like it came out in the year 2000. Just listen to the freaking soundtrack to this movie with Metallica and Limp Bizkit, and nothing against those bands, but you know, the 2000s were not kind to a lot of blockbuster movies in terms of just how poorly they aged, and Mission Impossible 2 is a shining example of that. And it is the only Mission Impossible movie that I would call bad. I like to love the rest of the movies. This is the only one that really not that good. All right, coming in the next entry, this might be somewhat of a hot take, and it is the newest Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. I think the reason I was kind of disappointed with this movie was the fact that it was coming off the heels of Mission Impossible Fallout, which I'll talk about way down the list. Mission Impossible Fallout, I think, is one of the best action movies that has come out in the last 10 years. And I was very skeptical when Tom Cruise announced that he's doing a two-parter that's following up Fallout, because I'm just like, how are you going to top Fallout? And in my opinion, Dead Reckoning doesn't really top Fallout. Just a lot of the things that we've seen in all the Mission Impossible movies prior to Dead Reckoning, by the time you get to Dead Reckoning, it's starting to feel like it's running out of steam. Like, Dead Reckoning just didn't feel all that fresh. It didn't have that new energy and new excitement that Fallout had in the previous couple of Mission Impossible movies had. It felt like a movie that was kind of running out of ideas. Also, I wasn't a fan of... there's a lot of CGI heavy action scenes in this movie. That kind of sticks out from the previous entries to that point. There's the whole train climax, which was cool to look at, but once again, you could tell very digitally manipulated, a lot of CGI there. And one of the reasons I love Mission Impossible, especially the later movies, is the emphasis on practical action. It gives those movies a level of excitement that most other action movies can't live up to. And the villain in Dead Reckoning was very bland. The whole AI subplot, I don't really know how I feel about that. And this movie is it's the first part of a two-parter. So perhaps my opinion on this one will change when the second movie comes out. But yeah, I was just kind of underwhelmed by this. And I think it's because I went in with very high expectations. I was expecting it to be as good or even better than Fallout, and it didn't live up to that expectation. Not a bad movie by any means, but it's out of all the later era Mission Impossible movies, this is the one that feels like, okay, we're starting to run out of ideas here. What else can we really do with this franchise? That's what it felt like to me. All right, coming in at the next spot, we have Mission Impossible 3. Now, I like Mission Impossible 3 a lot. The only reason that it's at kind of the lower end of the list is because I like all the other movies better. But it's still a very good movie. It's a very different movie from pretty much all the other Mission Impossible films. Like I mentioned, the first three Mission Impossible movies had a hard time trying to find a distinct identity. All three movies feel incredibly different. Mission Impossible 2 feels like a bad Americanized version of a John Woo movie. Mission Impossible 1, which we'll talk about, feels like a classic espionage, very Brian De Palma style thriller, if you're familiar with his films, which I am. I'm a big Brian De Palma fan. And Mission Impossible 3 feels very much like a mid-2000s J.J. Abrams movie. It has his distinct visual style. You got the lens flares, you got kind of the sleek visual presentation with a little bit of grit to it. And the movie stands out to me as being one of probably the darkest Mission Impossible movie. Like, it's not like a super bummer of a movie, but there are some genuinely intense and upsetting scenes in this movie that are like, whoa, you wouldn't expect that in a Mission Impossible movie. And I like all of that stuff. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, without a doubt, gives the best performance of any Mission Impossible villain. We've gotten some good villains over the years, but of course, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was, rest in peace. Love Philip Seymour Hoffman. Miss that man. He is one of the greatest actors ever, and even in kind of a over-the-top action movie, he delivers a genuinely sinister, villainous performance, and he's probably the most intimidating villain of all the Mission Impossible films. One of the other things that stands out to me about Mission Impossible 3 is that this is the most personal a Mission Impossible film feels in terms of Ethan Hunt's character. You know, he's married now, and he has to try to separate his work life from his home life, and he's trying to retire. He wants to be done being a spy. He wants to settle down and be happy, but of course that can't happen. I will say one of the reasons that Mission Impossible 3 falls at kind of the lower level of this list is because although the action is fun and is very good, it doesn't really compare to a lot of the other movies, where the action in a lot of the other films are exceptional. Some of the best action you can see in a movie. Mission Impossible 3, in terms of the action, kind of falls short in that regard. There's not like a particularly memorable set piece in this movie. Like, you know, with the first Mission Impossible, there's the heist scene, right? With Ghost Protocol, there's the scene in Dubai. With Rogue Nation, there's him hanging on the side of a plane. And with Fallout, there's the whole final act of that movie with the helicopter chase. Like, there's like usually a standout scene in a Mission Impossible movie. With Mission Impossible 3, you really don't have that. And the action is very good and very intense and fun to watch, but it doesn't reach the level, in my opinion. And that's primarily why I watch these movies. But Mission Impossible 3 is one of those movies where every time I revisit it, I end up liking it and appreciating it more. Like I said, I really like that it's the most personal movie to Ethan Hunt's character. I like how intense and gritty it gets. And I love Philip Seymour Hoffman. So yeah, I can see why this movie in particular is a fan favorite amongst fans. And I really like it. I like it a lot. Like I said, most of these movies are really, really good. I just like the other ones better. So that's Mission Impossible 3. On to the next one. All right, coming in on the next spot, we got the first Mission Impossible. Now, when I rewatched Mission Impossible, when I rewatched all the movies, I hadn't seen the first movie since I was like 8 years old. I grew up more of a James Bond fan. So revisiting it now as an adult and revisiting it now as a big Brian De Palma fan, I really was like, damn, the first Mission Impossible movie is great. Like, it's not so much an action movie as it is, like I said, talking about Mission Impossible 3. It is a very classic espionage, almost Hitchcockian thriller a la Brian De Palma. That's kind of his bread and butter if you're familiar with his films. It feels very much like a Brian De Palma movie. And that's why I like it so much. I think the movie is thoroughly entertaining. And it was just so much fun, and I attribute a lot of that to De Palma's direction. There's so many great scenes in the movie, like the heist is one of the most iconic scenes in this whole series. The whole bullet train sequence is still awesome, like, although that has a lot of green screen and, you know, digital effects. This was before this series was known for Tom Cruise doing death-defying stunts, so that doesn't really happen in this movie. But like I said, this movie feels so much different from all the other ones. It's more of a straight-up spy thriller than it is an outright action movie. But I really enjoy it for that. I love the tone. I love the pacing. I love the constant double crosses. And it's just, it's a thoroughly entertaining movie, like all of these movies are. But like I say, I enjoy this movie more as a Brian De Palma film than I do like in a Mission Impossible movie, if that makes any sense. Even though this is the movie that kicks off this really incredible franchise. But I really enjoyed rewatching Mission Impossible. That really shot up on my because I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much, because as a kid I thought it was kind of boring. But no, I like the first Mission Impossible a lot. Okay, we got 3 more to go. And at number 3, we have Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. These next 2 spots on the list were really, really hard to rank. But these are, regardless, these are the top 3 Mission Impossible movies. Rogue Nation is so fucking awesome. Like I said, Ghost Protocol was the film that really helped establish Mission Impossible's identity. It finally felt like it found its rhythm. And Rogue Nation builds off of that. It's got the same tone, the same attitude, but it kind of doubles down on a lot of the action. We get more fun character stuff. This is where Ethan really has his team, with Vig Rhames as Luther, and of course we got Simon Pegg. This is the movie that introduces us to Ilsa Faust, Rebecca Ferguson, who is a very integral and important character in this franchise. Minor spoiler alert, I don't like how her character was handled in Dead Reckoning Part 1. I will leave it at that. We'll see if the second movie redeems that. I'm not 100% sure. But that's one of the reasons why Dead Reckoning didn't really sit well with me. I felt like it did her character dirty. She is such a crucial character to the newer Mission Impossible movies, and a wonderful addition. And this is her debut, and it's fucking awesome. That this is a movie that has like amazing set piece after set piece after set piece. Like, it opens up with the plane stuff. We get one of my favorite scenes in like any spy movie, because it feels like awesome classic spy shit, is the opera sequence where Ethan is, going behind the scenes and fighting with those guys, and Ilsa's there, and oh my God, that's great. We get the underwater sequence. And then the whole last act of this movie really ramps things up like crazy. We also get introduced to another great villain who we see later on in Fallout. So yeah, Rogue Nation has just kind of got everything for it. It's like, this is like the Mission Impossible series firing on all cylinders. And I love it dearly. But I have to say, Ghost Protocol deserves more credit, which is why it's the next entry on this list. So the reason I put Ghost Protocol above Rogue Nation is, like I mentioned throughout this video, Ghost Protocol is the movie that gave this franchise its second wind. It's the reason why I'm a diehard fan. Like, if we only had the first 3 Mission Impossible movies, I'd be like, oh, I like those movies a lot. They're fun. But Ghost Protocol is why I am low-key obsessed with this series. It gave this a second life. It found its voice. It found its identity. Brad Bird, who is mostly known for animation. He directed The Incredibles and The Iron Giant and Ratatouille, I believe. Doesn't do a lot of live action stuff. This was his first live action movie he did, and it was amazing. I would love to see Brad Bird direct a James Bond movie in the future, because Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol is so amazing. And I remember watching this movie for the first time. I was just like, holy crap. Is it just me, or is this movie way better than it has any right to be? It's the movie that establishes Tom Cruise having to do at least 1 to 2 death-defying stunts in these movies. And the Dubai stunt in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol is an all-timer in terms of movie stunts. Watching that scene to this day still freaks me the hell out. And I love it for it. I think the only downside to Ghost Protocol is that the villain himself is very forgettable. He's some Russian, dictator, terrorist guy. So that's the only thing that kind of, is it somewhat of a damper, but otherwise Ghost Protocol is nearly a perfect movie. But that leads me into the film that I do think is the perfect Mission Impossible movie. Of course, number 1 was going to be Mission Impossible Fallout. I think most fans agree that this is the peak of not only Mission Impossible movies, but of modern action movies in general. Like, it's up there with, oh God, it's like tied with like Mad Max Fury Road for me. I'd probably put Fury Road a little bit higher over Fallout for more thematic reasons. But regardless, Fallout was one of my favorite movie-going experiences of all time. Because I loved Ghost Protocol so much, and I loved Rogue Nation. I got a group of my buddies, and we're like, dude, we got to see Fallout IMAX. We got to see it opening weekend. And we did, and holy crap. Talk about a movie that was designed to see on the big screen. Because like I said, for both Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, this is a movie that takes elements of those previous films and just cranks it up to an insane level. And the action in this movie is legitimately some of the greatest action I've ever seen in a movie. And I think some of the scenes in this movie can't be topped. The helicopter chase scene in this movie, oh my God, the fact that Tom Cruise wanted to actually learn how to fly a helicopter and then learn how to do like twists and spins in a helicopter for the first time ever. Oh my God, that's absolutely insane. And then him hanging on the bottom of the helicopter. That last act is incredible. But like, from beginning to end, this movie is just go, go, go. The stakes get higher and higher. The action gets more awesome and vicious, and like, dude, that final fight between Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill is amazing. And the death of Henry Cavill's character, holy Lord, one of the most brutal deaths in maybe a PG-13 movie ever. And Henry Cavill was a great addition. He's a great villain in this movie. He's one that stands out. Obviously, he's big and he's got the physical factor, so he's intimidating as hell, but he's also really smart and conniving. And he's very, very memorable in this movie. And and visually, it looks incredible. I mean, this is the movie where Christopher McQuarrie really took over. I mean, he directed Rogue Nation, but him and Tom Cruise really crafted a story for Fallout that's just like, I don't know how you can top it. And that's one of the reasons why Dead Reckoning Part 1 was kind of disappointing to me, because I consider Fallout to be like in the top 10 greatest action movies ever made. Maybe even a little higher on that list, but I do think it's one of the greatest action movies. And how do you top that? I don't know if you can, but we'll see. I have hope. I was watching the teaser to the Final Reckoning. I was like, all right, I'm ready for this series to end on a bang. Tom Cruise, if you end up watching this video, take a lesson from Daniel Craig's No Time to Die. Don't do that. And that's all I'll say about how you choose to resolve the character of Ethan Hunt. Give him an ending that he deserves. Don't do No Time to Die, because the ending to that movie fucking sucks. Anyway, guys, that's my list. Let me know what you think of my ranking. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your favorite Mission Impossible movie? Put your rankings in the comments below. I'd love to see your guys' thoughts on this franchise. And as always, thank you guys for watching.